Hello! Welcome to this week's video. For this week, I thought I would do something a little different. I thought I would take a crack at finally answering my Goodreads questions. These are a few questions that Goodreads sort of sends out to authors when you start your author page sort of on Goodreads, and I've just sort of never gotten around to answering them. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, feel free. I would love to make these sort of like an ongoing thing where I answer questions from you guys. Any questions that you may have about me as a author, as a reactor, as a reader. If you have been on my channel for a while, then you know that I react to television shows and or movies. I'm a huge fan of Outlander and Supernatural and Turkish dramas. I've started reacting to Lost. I write sexy times. That's romance with varying degrees of erotic scenes in them. I read sort of primarily the romance genre. Every once in a while I'll read a horror novel, but it has to be like a supernatural, paranormal, religious horror kind of thing. I don't really like sort of slasher, torture porn kind of books. I'm more into like ghost kind of horror and like demon kind of horror and end of the world prophecy kind of horror. So yeah, there's that. And romances, pretty much everything from historical to contemporary, erotic. I'm not so much into romantic suspense, though we must all bow to Lenora, the queen of all romance, Nora Roberts. And yeah, but she does a lot of like romantic suspense, but that's not really my thing. I tend to like more of her earlier stuff, though I do enjoy the J.D. Robb series. However, I enjoy the J.D. Robb series not because of the suspense plot that's going on, but because of the romance between Eve Rourke and the interactions between like the characters. So that's what I like about the In-Depth series. I like paranormal romances, for the most part, Black Dagger Brotherhood, and yeah, again, like that sort of like primarily the paranormal that I enjoy reading. So yeah, if you have any questions about my writing or my TV movie watching or my books that I like to read, by all means, leave them in the comments, and I might make these question and answer videos a more regular thing. But for now, I'm finally going to be tackling my Goodreads questions. So, let's go with the first question. That is, what mystery in your own life could be a plot for a book? Now, probably the fact that the maternal branch of my family tree ends with my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather was left on the doorstep of this couple, I believe. Was it a couple or like kind of a... No, I think he was left on the doorstep of just somebody's house. And so we don't know where sort of he came from. We know that it was families from a small village in Madeira, which is an island in Portugal, in the village of Câmara de Lobos, and that's about it. That's about it. He was left there as a baby, and we don't know where he came from. There are rumors that he is the illegitimate offspring of a woman and who was having an affair with a married doctor. So that could make a good book. That could make an interesting book if I ever were to choose to write that book someday. Which we keep it in a pile. We put a pin in it. We put a pin in it, and it's there, and that might get written someday. And one of my previously published books, Four Winds of Heaven, which I would like to rework and republish someday, is a story that has sort of like supernatural, paranormal elements in it, but I gave it sort of an end of the world type of bent. Has some basis in real life events. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I haven't tackled it yet to republish it and sort of give it back to y'all someday soon. So those two could potentially have some life in them, or some new life in them in the near future. Next, what books are on your summer reading list this year? Well, that pile there is my to be read pile. And those are like the books that I have done hauls for and shown you guys, and that I still have to read. So nothing specific from there that I'm planning to read this summer. I just want to make a dent in it. But the problem is, I keep adding books from that pile over there. And those are books that I have bought and have not shown you guys yet. And I'm not, I'm a mood reader. I don't do like TBR videos where I'm like, these are the books that I'm going to read this month. No, I don't do that, because I'm very much a mood reader. However, I do know that definitely one of the books that I'm going to be reading this summer, because it is my nighttime read, and I know it's probably going to take me perhaps until next summer, and that is Diana Gabaldon's Go Tell the Bees That I'm Gone. I'm on page 30 of we've got author's notes. We have more author's notes. of 888 pages. I'm on page 30. So this will probably take me until next summer. But that is intentional, because Diana Gabaldon takes some time between writing her books, because she is a human being, not a robot, and it takes a while to write 800 plus pages in a book, y'all. She is a human being. Y'all have been spoiled by these writers who, I was going to do quotation marks, but maybe that's not fair, because maybe there are people who actually do write that fast. However, there are also people who don't write that fast. What they do is they use ghostwriters, and they use a bunch of them and pay them to write their books so that they can release one book like every month. And y'all have been spoiled by thinking that there are people out there who actually do this, and the majority of them do not. Most of the writers who are releasing like a book a month are using freelance ghostwriting farms and hiring people to do that. Now, writing takes a long time, even when you are not a lazy butt like myself. However, I'm going to give myself a little slack here because I am almost finished the book that I'm writing, which we'll get to in another question. But I think I've only had 1 or 2 years where I didn't release a book since I started publishing in 2008. And I think a book a year is the standard. It might not be the standard now because see ghostwriting freelance farms, but it is usually what someone who has a day job and who does want to have a life outside of just writing, who has other hobbies and things, that is sort of the usual output of an author. A book a year. So, y'all need to chill. Y'all need to chill with expecting an author to release a book every month. But, as I was saying, so Diana Gabaldon's Go Tell the Bees is going to be my read for the summer. Again, I will be reading other books in that throughout the summer because I want to make a dent in it. But the Bees will be my nighttime read, so that is the one that I can most definitely show you guys. Let's see what's next. If you could travel to any fictional book world, where would you go and what would you do there? Now, I am torn here because if I were to travel to Outlander times, as much as, and again, like I'm a show watcher as well, so as beautiful as Scotland is, and as beautiful as they're in America now, so North Carolina is set in North Carolina. I believe they're still filming in Scotland, but it can double for North Carolina because it's the Outlander times. As beautiful as it is, I would not last 5 minutes in 18th century Outlander times. I wouldn't last 5 minutes. I'd be like killed by like a horse or like a random bear, a red coat, like just no. Same with like Game of Thrones. I would not last 5 minutes in Westeros with the way that everybody in that show was like stabby and rapey. No. So I'm trying to think of the books that I've read, and I wanted to, my first thought that like, oh maybe, was England Times, Julia Quinn, the Bridgerton books, and like Lisa Kleypas, and like sort of there. However, women not so much with the rights back then. So I don't. So I'm still torn. The book that I'm reading right now, Sally Bowman's Destiny. It's set in like 2 different kind of places. Right now, it's sort of like Paris, London, or like 3 different places I get. It's Paris, London, and Alabama. Alabama is, and I'm sorry if you're from Alabama, and I'm going to insult you now. Alabama is a shit show. Is a shit show right now. I can't even imagine what it was like in like the 40s and 50s with all the racisming that was happening and just no. So I don't know what fictional book world I could live in and like not like Bronze Horseman, Russia, no. Today, Russia, no. Black Dagger Brotherhood, vampires, no. I don't know. No, I don't think I have one for what fictional book world I would want to live in. Unless it was like, no, because eventually, like, the war would come to me. Because I'm like, maybe like Outlander times, and I would just like stay in my cabin and like not do shit. But either way, the war would still be coming to my door. So, I don't think I have an answer for that. Can you tell us a 2-sentence horror story? It's 2024. Russia has once again made Trump president of the United States. I'm sorry for that nightmare. Ooh, maggots are unsubscribing to me right now, and I'm totally okay with that. Ooh. How do you deal with writer's block? I don't really have writer's block in the sense of like I run out of ideas. I don't. I will not live long enough to write the ideas, not only the ideas that I have for books, but the works in progress that I have behind me that you cannot see right now because it's a two drawer file cabinet that I have that is over on this side on the floor next to this bookshelf. Next to this bookshelf, I have a 2-drawer file cabinet packed with works in progress that I've started over the years and have not finished. So, in that sense, I don't get writer's block. What does sort of happen is when I'm in a book and I don't so much, like, I'm a plotter, I'm not a pantser, for the most part. Although there's a new term called plantser, which is someone who does both, sort of like you have your plot, but you can, like, veer from the plot at, like, any time to sort of go in, like, different directions. That can happen to me on occasion, but for the most part, I'm a plotter. And I know the major points that I need to hit in my book. However, there are times where I'm finishing a scene and I know that I need to get to that other point in my book, but I don't know how. So that sort of happens. With, I guess, like transitions and stuff. I sort of get blocked with those. How do I get over that? Well, I guess I just write, even if it's just like gibberish or what have you, like, and I just think about the scenes, like, as I'm at the evil day job, or if I'm, like, running errands, and I just sort of, like, work them over, like, again and again, sort of, like, in my head. And just sometimes it just magically, like, just fixes itself. Just, for example, I was writing a scene, and again, I didn't know how I was going to get to the next thing that I wanted to happen. So I would just, every time I could, I would just have the manuscript, leave it open, fiddle with, like, gibberish words sometimes. And with this, I got to the end of this, I was writing the scene, and I had, like, lived with it for a while, like, in my head, and I kept, like, going over to, like, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? And writing the scene, and then just sort of at the end, the hero, Will, was sort of like, I got this. And then he spoke up and said something that completely fixed how I was going to get to the next scene. So it's basically just sort of just working it out in your head, and, like, live with it, and just make sure that you're always kind of working on it, even if it's writing out stuff that you know you're not going to use, but just trying sort of, like, different scenes to get to where you want to go. And yeah, even if you have to step away from it for a while, but always sort of have it in your head, and sort of living with it, and living with the scene, and living with, in terms of, like, writer's block of, like, you don't have, like, ideas and stuff. Again, I don't have that problem, but my suggestion for that sort of comes from another question that is on here that we're going to get to in a little bit. What's the best thing about being a writer? I would say the best thing about being a writer is, of course, it's always nice when you get people who, like, email you and, like, enjoy your work, and they're looking forward to, like, the next book, and then they tell you that the story like, made you cry. Or I had this one lady who had she was a fellow coworker at the evil day job, not the one that I'm at now, but at a previous evil day job. And she had just finished reading The Vendetta. That's Blood Vows book 1. And she had just finished reading the part where Brianna gives birth to baby Johnny. And this woman had actually just become a mother. She had just given birth herself. So she calls, I get a call, I hear an announcement over the PA that there's a phone call for me at the evil day job. And I was okay, like, I'm thinking, like, what's wrong? What's happening? And she called me sobbing, sobbing, because she had just finished reading that scene. Thankfully, my manager was her sister, so she did not give me, like, a hard time for, like, having somebody call me at work to just, do that. Like, she had actually been the one to recommend the books to. I had a great manager at this evil day job, who was always sort of, like, behind my writing and supporting my writing, and she would read my books, and she would work with my schedule so that I would have time to write. I swear, the only reason that I left that job was because management changed, and she went somewhere else. Of course, then we all followed her to the other job. But yeah, she was wonderful. And so her sister had read that bit where Brianna had given birth to baby Johnny, and so she called me sobbing about like how moved she was and how that scene affected her. And that's a very good thing about being a writer. Of course, the other side of that coin is you get people who don't like your writing and for some reason feel the need to tell you this. Somebody peed in their Cheerios that morning. I don't know, but so that's the bad side. But it's, getting good feedback from readers. That's always lovely. Just the fun of sort of like creating the world of the story that you're writing. And like, I don't write fantasy or anything like that, so I don't mean sort of like in a epic fantasy world building sense, but I mean like of the universe that you are creating with your story. That is a lot of fun. At the same time, it can be a slog. It can be like pulling teeth when just the words that you have in your head just don't come out sort of like the way that you want the plot to follow the plot. So that's like the bad part of it. But for the most part, it's sort of like being immersed in that world. And when you're in that world and the words are flowing and it's just going and it's beautiful and everything's working the way that you want it to work, the story's unfolding the way that you want it to unfold, that's probably like the best thing as well. I'm not going to say money, because it's, unless you're like a big name or unless you have a book that really, really takes off, it fluctuates, the money in this industry. It really does. Like, one month you're paying your bills and you're buying groceries, and the next month you're earning pennies. So I wouldn't say the money is the best part, because it's not. Because it fluctuates and it's not steady. So it's basically like good feedback from readers and when you're in the zone of when you're immersed in writing the story. So those two, I would say, would be like the best parts. What's your advice for aspiring writers? Don't worry so much about everybody else's pace. Because I am friends with writers who, they write like 5,000, 10,000 words a day. I'm lucky if I hit 1,000. No. Everybody sort of has their own pace. And again, there are also those who are not even writing their own books that they're putting out every month. They are using ghostwriting publishing farms. So, sort of don't get caught up in, I'm not going to make this like, again, about like the whole money thing. You can make a living as an author. You can. However, I wouldn't say you can make a steady living as an author. it fluctuates like a lot. So don't necessarily go into the industry thinking that you're going to get like one bestseller and be set for the rest of your life. And that doesn't really happen. Again, authors that, like Diana Gabaldon, she wrote Outlander and that like took off. But she's written like a crap ton of stuff after it, because if you want to have a career as an author, you have to put out a lot of books. Like, you have to keep writing. If it's a job that you want to do, you have to treat it like a job. You have to keep doing it. And I guess, like, my first piece of advice would be to finish the book. Finish it, because as Lenora says, Queen Lenora, you can fix a bad page, you can't fix a blank page. So, the main thing, finish the book. Then, in some ways it's actually easier, and in some ways it's actually harder, and it's for the same reason. There are a lot of options now with like self-publishing that weren't really around when like Outlander first came out. You can try the traditionally published route. I believe it's a lot harder. So in that sense, self-publishing has made it a lot easier to put your book out there, get money for it, and that kind of stuff. However, the huge ass like bestseller, indie published, because there's this option now, and a lot of people are taking it. So that means that unless you're out there pimping that book, it's going to be a lot harder for readers to find you, because they're finding self-published authors who are out there doing the marketing, who are out there pimping their books. So I would say that the self-publishing route is easier, but in a lot of ways it's a lot harder to get your books in front of eyes. Marketing is like 90% of what you're going to be doing if you want to be a writer. Writing is the 10%, which sounds really weird, but it's just true. If you're, and even like traditionally published, I don't really know, like traditionally published, you would get more of your books in bookstores, I suppose, but not a lot of them exist like they used to, bookstores in general. It's a lot of book buyers, it's online now. It's Amazon, it's Kindle Unlimited, so I would suggest the self-publishing route would be better if you're an aspiring writer, especially if it's romance. But just be prepared that 90% of the work that you do will be in marketing. It will be in like, and it like never ends. It never ends. You finished your book, you put it out there, you shared the buy link, you did all that, you, even as you're writing the next book, you're still out there promoting the first one, because it never ends. Um, so yeah, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm still like, and I understand those people who are like, I don't like always like I don't like promoting myself. I'm not good at it. I'm too shy. I'm this one. Social media helps a lot with that, because a lot of like the stuff is like, you don't have to do it sort of in person. However, there are aspects of the promoting the books that being comfortable with being on camera, being comfortable with doing like podcasts where you're like being interviewed by people, that's a part of it that is a good tool to pimp your book, and it's a part that if could actually bring you a lot of marketing success. So if you're just starting out, finish the book and then just be prepared to market it a lot. Forever. Till the end of time. You will be marketing that first book, and then when the second one's done, you will be marketing that first book and your second book, and when the third one's done, you will be marketing that first book and your second book and your third book, etc. What are you currently working on? I am currently working on Will's story. Blood Vows Book 4, The Choice. I am so close to being finished, the first draft. I'm hoping to finish it June-ish. I was hoping to finish it this month, but I'm not that. I'm close to being finished, but I don't think I'm going to finish it like the next week or two. So June-ish, and hopefully get it edited and released July-ish, maybe the end of July. I hope. But yeah, Blood Vows Book 4, Will's story. That's what I am working on right now. If you are new here, Blood Vows is my Mafia series that started with Vendetta. Second book is The Betrayal, and third book is The Secret. And that is the story of Brianna and Alessandro, two people from warring mafia families who fall in love, and there's a lot of drama and romance and sexy times. So if you like mafia romance, give that one a shot, and I hope that you enjoy it. I am planning to do, again, we are wrapping up Will's story, which is Brianna's son. And we are hopefully going to get to do Gianni's story, which is Brianna and Alessandro's son, and Gabriella's story, which is Brianna and Alessandro's daughter. And I have in the back of my mind just a little niggle that we might someday do the prequel, Francesca and Adriano's story. We might do that. Yeah, that might happen. If people want it, that might happen. The romance that started it all, that started the vendetta, that caused the whole shit to go down, that might happen. Next, we have, how do you get inspired to write? And this sort of goes with the, how do you, like, the whole, like, writer's block thing, and why sort of, like, I never get really writer's block. Because I love watching and listening to people talk about writing. I love watching or like listening to like romance podcasts. I love watching and listening to people talk about books, romance books. I love watching booktubers. Little note about that though. I like watching booktubers who seem to have a genuine love of the romance genre. And by a genuine love of the romance genre, I do not mean new adult. And the same 5 new adult books that every booktuber is talking about and everybody on TikTok is talking about. Because I will stop watching a booktuber if they start regurgitating books that everyone else is talking about. Because, little bit of a rant time here. And maybe I'm going to make this a separate video. I'm going to make this a separate video. So never mind. I like booktubers who talk about varied romance novels. Them talking about books inspires me to sort of get in the mood to write. The ranty stuff, I think I'm going to save that for a separate video, because I think that would make an interesting sort of ranty video, because those are always fun. But yeah, I love watching like author interviews where they're particularly romance centered author interviews. And I love listening to like romance podcasts. There's Smart Bitches, Trashy Books. There's Heaving Bosoms, which those two, they are Melody and Aaron in Heaving Bosoms. They are just hysterical. They're so funny. I still have to try, I think that it's Fated Mates with Sarah McLean, and I don't remember who else she does the podcast with, but yeah, romance podcasts, romance booktubers, they sort of always get me in the mood to write, because just hearing them talk about their love for certain books just makes me want to do that. Be sort of like, work on like this project that is going to give somebody that kind of joy, that kind of a feeling of like enjoying something that I made that much. So yeah, just watching people talk about books, listening to people talk about books, listening to other authors talk about their processes and their writer lives inspires me to write. Watch for that ranty video coming soon, someday. And the final question is, where did you get the idea for your most recent book? Technically, I think at the end of book 3 in Blunt Vows with The Secret, there's the epilogue. And I don't think maybe subconsciously I did this, but consciously as I was writing it, I wasn't writing it for like sequel bait or like series bait. When I wrote the little peek into what Gabriella and Johnny and Will were up to sort of as adults, I didn't consciously write it with the idea that I was going to write each of their stories someday. Maybe subconsciously I did, but not consciously. But as sort of time went on, and to this day, Blood Vows is still my bestseller. Resistance is getting up there. Resistance is my World War II set trilogy, which, again, the epilogue on that, I will be sort of giving people their own books in that trilogy. But again, wasn't my plan. Just sort of, I liked having that sort of, here's what the children are up to, and here's, you know, how we're ending the book, and like everybody's, for the most part, happy, and but yeah, like Blood Vows is still like my best-selling trilogy. The Resistance is like getting up there, getting close. It might be surpassing it someday. Some months it does. Some months my Resistance trilogy sells more than my Blood Vows. But if we're talking consistently it's Blood Vows. And hopefully that'll reach or experience a resurgence, because Mafia romance is huge right now. That like really surprised me, because when I wrote Blood Vows, I wrote it because I loved Mafia romances. I love sort of love stories set sort of in that world, and there wasn't enough of them. So I wrote one. And it's still my bestseller to this day. I think I published it first with a different publisher, who they were a little bit not, what's the word? Not kosher. They weren't, legitimate? Not legitimate. It was a real publisher, but she was just a crook who basically took our books and promoted that, or didn't promote them, excuse me, put her publishing name on them and took her percentage, or took all our percentage, because we never got any royalties from them. So going back to the what advice would I give to like aspiring writers, do your research. Do your research with, if you're going the publishing route, there are a lot of crooks out there. And I know, based on how popular my Blood Vows series is now, when it first came out, I missed out on a lot of money. I know that I missed out on a lot of money because of crooked publishers out there. Yeah. So I think like I published the first incarnation of the Blood Vow series, I believe, was published in 2013. So like 10 years ago. Then that publisher all of a sudden closed, because we all started communicating with each other and was like, we're not getting any royalties, and like, what's going on, and like, blah, 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 and like, so then she kind of like disappeared, and apparently was like giving being unscrupulous with a lot of like different businesses that she, I think, was a part of. And so then we got our rights back, and I republished Blood Vows in, I think, 2016. Yeah, 2016. And from that time, it has consistently been like my best-selling trilogy, with a couple of exceptions lately with the Resistance trilogy, where it's sometimes the Resistance trilogy did better. But I thought, okay, what if since this is still doing so well, and Mafia Romance is experiencing this like resurgence of, or this life now of like popularity, what if we went back there and we sort of have the ideas for what the next books are going to be, because of that epilogue in The Secret. Excuse me. Which, again, was not my plan, but it's there. Let's take advantage. So that's where the idea for writing Will's story came. It was waiting for me there in the epilogue of The Secret. Excuse me. I was sick a couple of weeks ago, and you know how like once you're sick, the last thing to go is like the cough. You get that lingering cough. I sort of have that a little bit, followed by like one of the worst migraines that I've had in years. I had it for like 3 days, and I was like, my blood type was Advil and Tylenol, because like just those were the only two things keeping me alive. And thankfully that's a lot better now. But you still have a little bit of like the lingering cough and a little bit of a headache, but it's much better. Yeah, so I think that's going to be it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed that little peek into my writing life, and I hope that my sort of like little bits of like advice might have helped you guys. Again, if you want to be a writer, main thing, finish the book. And then just accept that you're going to be marketing and pimping that one book in addition to the others that you write for the rest of your life. Forever. Ever and ever, amen. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions that you want to ask me, by all means, leave them in the comments. They could be book related, they could be TV reaction related, they could be writing related, they could be about anything, really. If you want my views on politics, you'll get my views on politics. Be ye warned. I'm not shy about that. Yeah, so that's going to be it for this week's video. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/authorejamie. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!